Hi Ben, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good. So in our country, we have a lot of billionaires. We have a lot of companies that are worth billions of dollars.
Thank God. It's a great country.
Sure. So Tesla uses lithium mines in Africa where children are employed. They're paid very little amounts of money. They're starving. Nike uses children in Asia where they're working with textiles and they are injured frequently. These are all dangerous conditions. All these companies, all these billionaire companies have these similar problems at the bottom ring. Do you think that that's exploitation? Do you think that exploitation is a problem? And do you think that your idea of free market capitalism has an answer for exploitation?
So I think that every economic system has a problem of exploitation if it's not bound by certain levels of morality. Right? Socialism has a level of exploitation too, which you see in the Soviet Union, for example. You can treat workers as chattel, and you can treat them as trash, and you can force them into doing jobs they don't want or gulag them. So any system of economics that relies on force is a form of exploitation. I would say that the problem that you see with regard to China is not per se free markets. It's the fact that the Chinese government is willing to allow its own citizens to be used as child labor, and the fact that there is no governance structure in Africa at all to protect children, if what you're saying about Tesla is true. I'm going to assume that it is. I don't know enough about the issue. So assuming that that is the case, there's nothing in free market capitalism that prohibits people who are incapable of making decisions for themselves from being exploited. That's true. Right? I mean, if you can find somebody this is particularly true with child labor, children are not capable of consent. If children are incapable of consent, then free market conditions should not prevail, and there should be laws on the books that prevent companies from actually using that sorts of labor. Right? We've had child labor laws in the United States for quite a while, and I agree with those. But that's not to suggest that any other economic system wouldn't be similarly prone to exactly the same kinds of problem, as long as you are saying that exploitation is simply a function of economic growth, or even economic distribution. Right? They're almost two separate issues. So one is an issue of morality. Immoral people can use any system in order to harm other people, and particularly children and people who can't protect themselves. The case that socialism makes is that people who are fully capable of consent are also exploited, and that, I think, is a lie.
Well, do you think that? I apologize.
Oh, no worries.
I just tripped up, but. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I think that the broader point that I'm making is that when it comes to, sorry, did you remember?
So
Go ahead.
So would you be in favor of legislation here in the United States that prevents billionaire companies and multi-billion-dollar companies from using exploitation around the world?
Depending on what we are defining as exploitation, sure. I mean, if we're talking about forcing small children to make Nike shoes, absolutely.
Child labor.
Yes.
Child labor. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and by the way,
we're in agreement.
And by the way,
we're in agreement.
Yeah, and by the way, I would agree with a United States policy of tariffing any company abroad that also uses similar levels of labor, because the big problem is that the reason companies in the United States presumably do that sort of stuff is in order to compete with companies abroad that are using exactly that sort of labor. So punishing those companies abroad from doing that would also be a way of preventing them from entering American markets and undercutting companies that are now undergoing the higher labor cost of having to not use small children to make shoes. Yeah.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, so I wanted to bring up the fact that you talked about individuals and everything, and I wanted to bring up a few examples, for example, like COVID and the 2008 financial collapse and even the 1994 crime bill and things like that. Those have definitely effects on big groups, and especially the black community and everything. After the 2008 financial collapse, not many people got, I wouldn't say accused, but convicted, for example. Not many people on Wall Street, the individuals who did profit a lot from those things. But millions of people were kicked out of their homes and everything. And you talk about things like these being, or America being, based on individuals and individuals wanting to achieve different things. But in reality, a lot of people are affected by their societal factors, their environment and everything. So I want to get your answer on that and how these negative effects, affect the majority of people. But the positives, the money gains, the Wall Street things, not many of the working class people in Tallahassee, for example, feel that. Not many people in Tallahassee felt after COVID or during COVID the stock market jumps, the average employer just
Yep.
saw a bunch of just empty, employment, options and low wages and everything still, and the same old, same old. So,
Well, I mean, okay, so I think that the fundamental idea with regard to, it's almost two separate questions, and so I'm going to take them one at a time. The reason I'm separating the questions is because when it comes to corporate bailouts, for example, I'm sure you and I agree. I don't think that any of those corporations should have been bailed out. I think that if you engage in the moral hazard of wrecking your own company, I don't see why I'm supposed to pay for that or you're supposed to pay for that. In a free market system, you're supposed to bear the consequences of the risks that you take. I think that's true across the board. Sure. And I think that whether you're a big rich guy on Wall Street and you lose your entire company, or whether you're a guy who took out a loan that you couldn't afford on your house, if you take out too much, that is, as I am constantly saying, a you problem. If you take a risk and then you bear the consequence of that risk, that's no one's fault but your own. And anybody who comes in to bail you out from that, particularly if you're talking about with like billions of dollars in order to prop up a particular lifestyle, that's a huge mistake and it's a huge problem. And I totally agree with that.
And for example, with that, we in America, we do bail these people out. Our capitalist system does not.
That's not capitalism. That's cronyism.
It definitely, yeah. People say that, but
no, but it's true.
It's
no, but it's
we do bail these people out. And
right. I'm just saying that that's not capitalism. That's actually closer to corporatism, which is the government being in control of the economy, essentially. I mean, who's bailing them out? I mean, are they bailing them out? The government is bailing them out.
Yeah, definitely the government. And for example, we don't get these similar bailouts for regular people. Like, for example, Joe Biden was, promoting just $2,000. We're fighting for scraps. I want to understand, where does that come from? Why are we so, willing to give?
Well, I mean, the United States does spend literally trillions of dollars on social welfare programs. The notion the United States has no social safety net at all is not true. The United States spends per citizen tens of thousands of dollars on social welfare benefits, ranging from Medicaid to food stamps to unemployment insurance to a wide variety of programs. The notion that we're wildly out of line with Europe is just not borne out by the statistical facts, actually. It's kind of an American myth that we tell ourselves that we don't spend any money on this sort of stuff. It's not true. Since the beginning of the war on poverty, we spent something like $22 trillion on various social programs, and essentially the same number of people live underneath the poverty line.
Okay, and then a last question. So we have this infrastructure bill going through, and you see people like Joe Manchin, arguing over, what is it, $5 billion in regards to it, or just, just a little price difference, for example. Over the past 20 years, we've been fighting wars in Afghanistan, and we spent trillions and billions of dollars. And you have these politicians saying that these infrastructure bills that will help us on our domestic front, these small price changes are going to have dramatic effects on, our future and our children. And that's why they, the Republican Party, they definitely, go for austerity and those, factors.
So the wars, to take an example, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were expensive. They cost grand total somewhere between $3 and $4 trillion last I checked. The United States spends about $4 trillion in the budget every single year, and we spent about $7 trillion last year. That's every year, right?
Yeah, I just want to know what that means for the future of our children. If we're willing to spend that much on war, what does that mean in regards to, these infrastructure bills, us fighting over these small amounts in comparison to war?
We're not really fighting over small amounts. These are very large amounts of money. The entire American budget 40 years ago was not nearly as much as one of these infrastructure bills. I mean, 20 years ago it wasn't. And you just go back and look at the budgeting. So we're spending unsustainable amounts of money on nearly everything in American life. To point out defense spending as opposed to what really constitutes the vast bulk of our budget, which is everything else. Defense spending as a percentage of the American budget is something like 20%, 25% of the American budget. I think it's even that high. That is not the chief driver of systemic spending problems in the United States. It's massive mandatory spending programs. I have to ask you a question. Were you the guy before who I saw a picture of holding the very creative flag?
Yes, it was outside.
Yeah, dude, I got to ask you, Lenin and Stalin? Really?
Yeah, definitely Lenin and Stalin. It's just
Lenin and Stalin?
Stalin
really?
definitely due to World War II. I mean,
we're talking about exploitation of people. I mean, Stalin.
We do a lot of that in America too. I live in Tallahassee. There's a lot of exploitation. I used to work at a lot of places, and there's a lot of poor people.
Were you gulagged though?
We have prisons in America too.
Were you one of the 30 million people murdered by Stalin? Really, if you're gonna go Marxist, then please find a better Marxist to emulate than Lenin or Stalin, mass murderers.
The Soviet Union during World War II Save the world. I would say that.
If it had not been for Stalin, World War II never would have started, because it was the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that allowed the Nazi Germans to believe that they could invade Eastern Europe.
This will be the last question that Mr. Shapiro takes for the evening.
That's
Sorry,
a lot of
guys,
pressure. That's a lot of pressure. My name's Andrew, and I was introduced to you by the Michael Knowles book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats. Your quote that said "thorough" at the top, and it was a blank book. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that book, my question is about it's like in the way that like the things that you're saying about certain things being done with hard work, things being done with intellect, as kind of like a slippery slope to more right, like racist things or like white supremacist things. The question is like a FSU specific question about what your thoughts are about the difference between canceling someone for what they believe and accountability in a position where they should have accountability. Specifically, Jack Denton, who was an FSU, I believe, Senate person, but he was basically, he had, sorry, I should be more knowledgeable about this, but, and I really don't want to be the college student destroyed by Ben Shapiro. But the question is basically he was an FSU student that had anti-BLM, anti-transgender comments in a Catholic group that he had, the Facebook group or something. If someone wants to correct me on that, they can. But a group me, gotcha. Different application.
Okay.
But the question is basically, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so my basic view of cancel culture, I won't comment on a specific case because I really don't know the facts of the case. But my general thoughts on cancel culture versus what they call accountability culture is you get to hold somebody accountable for a thing that they do in the space where they do it. What I mean by that is I speak on politics. If I say something bad about politics, you cannot listen to my show. You can say that I'm a bad man, and you can come after me, and you can tell people not to listen to me and all of that. If you go after my advertisers who are advertising on a wide variety of programs, then that is an attempt to cancel as opposed to an attempt to hold accountable, because the person that you're actually attempting to hold accountable is not me. You're attempting to go after advertisers who have had nothing to say about any of my advertisers, I assume, disagree with a lot of what I say. Right? Just because they advertise on the program does not mean that they approve of everything I say, any more than they agree with everything on MSNBC if they advertise on both of us. This holds true across, I would say, industries. So you'll see a plumber, and a plumber has some sort of bad thing on a Facebook page. And the idea is that you can no longer use this plumber because of what was on their Facebook page that they were talking about politics. That seems very silly to me. If you can unclog my toilet, I'll use you as the plumber. These two things have nothing whatsoever to do with each other. If it impacts your job performance, that's accountability culture. If it impacts not your job performance, it just impacts sort of your public perception, that seems a lot more like cancel culture to me.
As a member of student government, do you think that he should be held accountable to those beliefs?
I mean, it depends who's holding him accountable. In other words, was he, you'll have to tell me the story. Was he dumped by the school from his position in the student senate, or did people just not elect him in the future?
Yeah, it was a vote of no confidence from the student government.
I mean, I can say whether I disagree or agree with that, but I can also say that if a student government votes that they don't want somebody else in student government because of something that they've said politically, then I can think that they are being censorious. I'm not sure that that counts as formal cancel culture in the sense that they're being canceled for something that is outside the purview of which they're normally speaking. But I can still think that the people who are doing it are jackasses. I don't know what he said. So both of those things can be true at once. Sometimes accountability culture, as it's called, can also be misused. It's not like a hard divide between accountability culture is good and cancel culture is universally bad. Right? I could probably think of hypothetical scenarios where that's not true.
I agree with Ben. We are not going to agree on the same thing or say the same thing, but that does not mean that because I say this, you don't agree with me, means that every other person that follows me have to bear the cross. No. In a family of 5, everyone think differently and everyone behave differently with different characters. Sometimes you wonder, are they really siblings? That is it. We're all unique in our own way. I might be supporting a political ideology. and my brother might not be supporting that person, but that does not mean my brother will not talk to me. You understand? We know the line where we draw. You understand? When it comes to politics, we might not, be in equal terms. But when it comes to every other thing in life, we can agree. That is it. So you don't judge me because of my political career, then deprive me of something that will benefit me in the future because I don't agree with you. So when it gets to that part, we can debate. When it gets to something that will benefit me, let me do it. Just like what Ben said here. He said when it comes to, he's not going to, because you don't agree in his political ideology, that does not mean he will not call you if his toilet gets stuck. He's going to call you because he needs your service. So back to it, I think what does the guy on blue, when he made mention of, people, these big companies making use of, minors to produce their goods. I think, yeah, I've heard of such story in several countries whereby minors are being used to produce goods, especially, batteries, lithium batteries, whereby they dig those, raw materials. And people sometimes want to buy raw material, you see, just like gold in Ghana. They don't care how you get the gold. What they want is, okay, I need this gold, I need it to produce this, or I need this battery or this material that you turn into battery to produce my battery. So the government can actually take from individuals and say to them, just like what is happening in Ghana, if you have a gold, you don't sell it directly to the final consumer, you sell your gold to the government. Why the government do the final selling? They sell it at their own rate. So I think that is how it is in several countries, whereby the government work hand in hand with, these foreign buyers, these foreign investors. The foreign investors don't work with like lower individual, people that get the raw material. So I think what Ben said is right. It's not fair to allow, underage do this kind of job. But at least let it be known that sometimes it is not this big complaints. It's actually the country that these raw materials have been found. If the country put things in place and cut down on child labor, I think all this will be a thing of the past. So back to when the guy made mention of, American using their, money to, sponsor war. I think American is trying to create or maintain this notion that they are not falling behind, or when it comes to what power they are there. When it comes to, defending themselves, they are there. And that is why whenever any war happens, they are always giving their side to the war to show that, yes, we are still in charge, you understand? We are still here. So by donating, by contributing and doing this, they put themselves in the map, even if they are not physically going there to fight. But they are letting the world know that, yes, we are not weak. We still have a say in what is happening. And I think that's how people or countries maintain world power. Because if people don't hear from you for a very long time, your name stop becoming relevant. You can check that in the musical industry. When you're a musician and you don't release hit song, soon people forget you understand? Because every day new artists are coming on. So that is why I think Americans are always keeping themselves in the spotlight, trying to maintain their relevance. Anyway, this is beautiful. I want to see more videos like this. If you have any recommendation, let me know in the comment section. If it is your first time visiting the channel, click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching and remember blessed.